Hello and welcome to Saurabh Sir's classes. Today we'll discuss about the preparation strategy for management courses. Now when we talk about the word management, what do we mean? Management comes from the word manage. And what does manage means? Manage means to manage situations, to manage businesses, and in order to manage anything, what is required? The only thing that is required is decision making. So this is the key element of any management course. It is all about decision making. And therefore, the entrance process to any of these courses will test you on your decision making skills. So typically, this consists of 4 steps. The first step would be a written test. The second would be application process. The third step would be a group discussion, and the last step would be a personal interview process. So these are broadly the 4 stages or 4 gates through which you have to qualify. And remember that all they are looking for is your decision making skills. So let's explain how. Now let's talk about each of the stages. The first is the written test round. Now if you would have seen any MBA entrance written test paper, it tests you on your ability to take decisions in a short span of time. Now what does that mean? It means that typically they give you questions with 4 or 5 choices, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you are required to find the right answer. Now that is the trick. You don't have to solve the question fully. All you have to do is eliminate choices logically and find the right answer. So it is a combination of how you relate the question to the options and use your intelligence and logic to find out the right answer. So this is the format of the written test, and typically there are 3 or 4 sections. One tests you on your verbal or English ability. The next one tests you on your quantitative or mathematics skills. The third one tests you on your logical reasoning and data interpretation. And there might be a 4th and a 5th section also on general knowledge and decision making in particular. This is for ZAC in particular. So these are the sections on which you will be tested. Now how do we prepare for that? Now the syllabus for all these kind of management entrance tests are based on 10th standard. 10th standard English, maths, reasoning of course is logic, and general knowledge is from current affairs. So all you have to know is your 10th standard English and mathematics. Then why is it so difficult? It is difficult because of the time pressure, and that is where you have to understand the exact trick of the questions or exact nature of the questions and look at the options given to select the right choice by elimination sometimes, or by a combination of selection and elimination. So you have to use all the tactics possible to arrive at the correct answer. So this is why it is so tough. Now, let us look at an example. We look at one question that appeared in this year's CAT paper. It is talking about the population of a town which increases by a certain proportion. So P becomes 3 plus 2P, and this is the pattern of increase every year. So, and we are asked the value of the population 15 years from today. So we can clearly see that there are 4 choices given, and in each choice, if we look carefully, we have 2 numbers which is of the form P plus 3, because P is given as 1000, and P minus 3, and we are given 2 constants, minus 3 or plus 6, and then the relevant powers being associated with it. Now, if we can determine what should be the value of the first term, whether it should be P plus 3 or P minus 3, then we can easily eliminate 2 choices. And along with that, we also have to get the value of the constant term. So that gives us the hint, and all we have to do is to look at this number 3 plus 2P, which is the value of the population P at the end of the first year. Now we can write this as P into 2 to the power 1 plus 3. Now we can clearly observe that if I have plus 3 and in option 3 I have plus 3, then it has to be of the form P minus 3. But if I have plus 3, I am getting P. So I have to convert this to P minus 3 or P plus 3. So if I write this as P minus 3 into 2 plus 3, so I have basically added minus 6 and I have to add plus 6, then I'm getting the form P minus 3, but then my constant term is becoming 9. So this cannot be the way out, and then I can try the other route, P plus 3 into 2 minus plus 3 minus 6, which means that I am getting the constant term as minus 3, and the first term is P plus 3 into 2 to the power 1 minus 3. Now you see, I am getting a clear indication that minus 3 and P plus 3 should be the 2 respective terms, and let's see which combination has that. Only the first combination or the first option gives me that choice. In none of the other choices I am getting these 2 options or these 2 values together, and we have already tested that P minus 3 cannot be the answer, so option 2 and 3 are ruled out. And with P plus 3, the choice is plus 6 and minus 3, so I get this as the right choice without even calculating the actual value. If you calculate the actual value, you'll obviously get this answer, but I'm just showing you that if you pay attention to the options of the answers, you can actually start eliminating the wrong answers and start zeroing in on the probable answers, and then with logic you can arrive at the final answer. So you don't really need to solve the problem, you just need to use a combination of logic and what is given to arrive at the answers, and in most cases this strategy works. So how will you prepare for the written test? So start with looking at the past question papers, solve them, first with no time constraints, and note down the total time that you need to complete all questions. Try this with any one paper. And then you also study and evaluate how many incorrect answers you gave and what was the reason. Where did you go wrong? So this will tell you where you need to focus. So this is the first step. So after you've analyzed your first question paper and the solution to it, and you have realized the areas that you need to focus on, then step number 2 is to revise those areas. Now, which means if it is in the area of maths, you have to go through those particular topics. If it is in verbal, then you have to go through the areas which you are having problem with. Is it vocabulary? That means, are you not able to understand certain words? Then you have to refer to the dictionary and try and get the meaning of those words, build up your vocabulary. Or are you not able to comprehend the passage or the sentences? So if you are not able to comprehend, then you have to read it over and over again, practice reading of different kinds of topics, starting from business to culture to sports, everything that you can think of, others. So you start practicing a reading habit. And for DILR, which is logical reasoning, you have to start solving puzzles. And there are patterns to that as well, which we'll talk about. So this is the second step. So revise those areas, try and build up your weak areas, devote some time on that, let us say 3 to 4 days or maybe a week to do this. And then after that, you take your second test, which again should be a previous year's question paper, and repeat the same exercise and see, and this time you don't take unlimited time, you follow the time constraint section wise and see what is your score, and again repeat the same process of analyzing your mistakes. Now what is important is that there should be a progressive improvement between your attempts. So if, for example, in your first attempt you had scored, let's say 100 out of 300, then, and that too, let's say in 4 hours, then in your second attempt you should be able to score 105 in 3 hours. So this should be the approach. And also it is important to note that you should not make the same mistake twice. You should not make the same mistake twice. So if you had made a mistake in a geometry problem in the first attempt, you should revise your geometry section and ensure that those questions are correctly answered. So repeat this process at least 5 times. Take a test, analyze, revise and repeat. Test, analyze, revise and again take the test. So we call this TART or TART process. Now of course we have some tricks and processes by which you can answer some of those questions in a better way, more quickly than you can, and we'll be talking about those specific areas in separate video. For example, there are, like I showed that in some of the quants questions, there are shortcuts. In verbal, there are ways in which you can cut down on the time to comprehend the passage. There are techniques for that. In the DILR section, there are techniques to solve a puzzle quickly. So these are things we'll discuss in separate video. So in summary, what is important from a strategy perspective for the written test section or written test round is the TART process, which means take the test, analyze, revise and again take the test. And by this process you should have a continuous improvement. And one more thing, after you've taken, let's say, 3 to 4 tests, the first 3 to 4 tests we recommend you to take the comprehensive test or the full test. After you have done that, you have identified your areas of improvement, you start taking sectional tests, sectional mock tests or sectional tests, and focus on each of the sections individually. Now do this for about 5 to 7 tests for each section, and then come back to the comprehensive tests again. So this should be a cyclic process. Now, having spoken about the strategy of the written test, let us come to the second step of the process, which is application. Now, typically in this stage, you are supposed to apply online through a form which you have to fill up, which talks about 2 things. One is what have you done, and 2, what can you do. So this is the essence of this form, and they are looking for your achievements and your ideas. So achievements, which is your application of knowledge. Application of knowledge. And your ideas, which is your creativity. These two combined tells what can you deliver for any organization. So this is the part where you have to be very careful about your achievements and your ideas. You have to talk about what you have done in various fields in life, academics, extracurriculars, and anything else that you might have done. And you have to bring out those achievements in the context of the field of your study or the area that you are interested in. And then you have to talk about your ideas, like where do you see yourself 5 years from now, or what are the top 3 things that you bring to the table, 3 ideas. So these kind of questions will appear on the application form, and you have to summarize your achievements and ideas. The third step in the process is the group discussion. Now, this is a step which most people do not approach correctly. The reason being that they do not know what is expected. Most people tend to think that you go into a group discussion and you just start fighting, pushing your points. No. The reason why it is called group discussion and not a debate is because this is a simulation of an actual corporate discussion where you have to participate actively and bring in ideas to help the group to arrive at a solution or arrive at a set of solutions. Arrive at possible options or possible solutions. This is what happens in any corporate discussion as well. There is a topic and people discuss about it, the pros and cons, both, and then they consider the weightages and the impacts of these pros and cons on the objective of what they are trying to achieve, and then they finally zero in on few alternates that possibly they will test out. So this is how a group discussion also is expected to proceed. So therefore, you as a participant, you are expected to bring in points around both pros and cons and discuss the impacts of these on the topic or the objective or the problem. The topic is actually a problem statement. So this is the essence of a GD, and the criteria of selection are: one is communication. So you have to speak, and this does not mean that you have to go on speaking. Typically, you are expected to speak for about 3 to 4 times, bringing in different points of view, and you are also expected to actively participate. That means actively listen to what the others are saying, judge what their points are, bring in examples, and drive the discussion. So active participation, communication, And then leadership in terms of thoughts, innovativeness, that is ideas around the topic. So these are the factors on which you are evaluated in a group discussion. And the last step in the process is personal interview. Personal interview. Now, what is the purpose of this step? This is where you are being evaluated based on what you think and what you can actually deliver. Now, what does this mean? You have already submitted your application and possibly a CV as well, where they have already seen what you have done, your achievements and your ideas, and now they want to verify whether what you have written there is actually written by you or whether you have actually done it, actually true. So they will ask questions from these things, and they will give you situations similar to what you have written here and ask you how will you deal with those situations. And in many cases there are no right or wrong answers. No right or wrong answers. It is the approach that matters. So they're trying to check your logical approach based on data, facts, arguments, all of that. So this is in a nutshell the personal interview round. Now, any management course will have these 4 rounds basically, and we have discussed how you can prepare for each one of them. If you have any further questions, please do contact us and we'll discuss in more details with each one of you.